And if you're not doing this, if you start to pay attention, you'll find that it's much easier to put energy towards those things.
This is episode 3, a duo episode with Elizabeth Rose, the Adeptist, and myself. Today we're going to be talking about cycle syncing, the thyroid, the adrenals, and her upcoming program called Nourished. Hi, it's Catherine, and a huge welcome to the Living on Purpose podcast, a place where we discuss the importance of purpose in our lives and connect with others that have created soul-aligned offerings that build into their personal purpose. I'm super excited to be back with all of you after the initial 3 episodes laying the groundwork. We're going to start interviewing guests, and Elizabeth is just such a delight. I'm really excited to share her message with you all. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe, rate, review, turn on the notifications for the Living on Purpose podcast. When you send me your screenshot of the review to Catherine@klzmethod.com, we will send you our KLZ Method workout for the chakras. Also, as you're listening, screenshot your favorite part and share it with us on Instagram at klz.method. I love hearing from you and sharing your thoughts and comments. I'm so grateful to you and all of our amazing listeners for helping us to grow the podcast and share its guests and messages with more people. Before we head into the show, here is a quick word from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is Nourished. This is an in-depth female nutrition course that takes into account female physiology and the menstrual cycle. Where most of mainstream wellness fails to account for the nuances of the female endocrine system as it pertains to nutrition and self-care, Nourished speaks directly to the full spectrum of women's health, giving women the tools to feel confident in the ways that they care for and nourish their bodies. Use promo code KLZ for $100 off. This beautiful course begins January 8th with 5 weeks of calls and sessions. This is a beautiful community that is being created around learning how to eat for your womanhood, evolving out of confusion, stress, restriction, low energy, control, and hanger into nourishment. To sign up, go to www.theadeptist.com. www.theadeptist.com. Also, if you go to the notes for this episode, you will find the discount code, the link, and additional description for this beautiful course. So let's get into today's episode. We are here today with Elizabeth Rose, the Adeptist. She is joining us to talk more about cycle syncing and all things related to these beautiful systems that she supports. Her bio is so beautiful. She holds sacred containers for women to heal, transform, and come home to themselves. Holding space for both physical and spiritual alchemy, Elizabeth works with a wide range of modalities, including holistic nutrition and herbalism, along with shadow work, plant medicine, and spiritual mentorship. Her deepest calling is to be in service to women on their healing journeys as they alchemize pain points into embodied wisdom. Ooh, I just love it. That's so good. And it's so you. Just so explains exactly what you do. So would you tell us more about the Adeptist and what you love doing? Just a little bit more on your bio.
Yeah. So the Adeptist is really, it's about accessing the healer within you. And my passion in particular is supporting women. And, an Adeptist really means a skilled alchemist. And to me, an alchemist is someone who can take something seemingly ordinary or even take something ugly or painful or disharmonious and transmute it into something extraordinary, transmute it into wisdom, into, beauty. And so I work with a lot of different things, but what I always circle back to is just a love and a passion for sharing that message and empowering women to recognize that they hold a lot more power than they probably realize and what we've been taught to heal themselves.
I love that. I mean, it's it takes that sort of darkness that we sort of want to shy away from having, whatever those emotions or whatever those things might be. If it's anger, we'll just say, or sadness or something like that, it takes that from being something that we're trying to stuff down to something that you really want to open up and really take a deeper look at and find the power in it.
Yeah.
It's really neat. I'm glad that you did that. I'm glad that you shared that description of it, because I know, but I just love how you said it. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And that name really found me. It's funny because I'm sure you'll relate to this, but words hold so much power. And I think that the name Adeptist found me before I really understood the power of that word.
Oh, I love it.
Like, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like, I feel like in talking about purpose, it's like, I feel like that word initiated me into a whole different version of myself. And I didn't even know what I was stepping into by choosing that word,
Right.
It's become so layered, and I'm like, of course, this makes sense that this is the name that would, find me. And now I'm being, taken down the journey of what that actually looks like to embody that frequency and what that frequency of the Adeptist holds. But it's really, it continues to expand and grow and shift. And so
it like you two are really growing together. You and the Adeptist are really like having this relationship. That's really neat.
Yeah.
It's so cool when you have those things that you find the layers and you're like, wow, we're going deeper again. I love it.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth and I connected a while ago, and then we reconnected recently. I had always meant to reach out to her. I just loved her work, and the side of things that she does really complements what I'm doing with, workouts and fitness and things like that. So I had always intended to reach out to her. And I saw this ad for cycle syncing with your workouts. And I just, I wasn't quite ready to reach out to you. I was trying to rebrand, and I really wanted to like come to the table in my fullest expression. So I hadn't prepared myself, but I was just like, okay, this is a sign. It's time to go. So I sent it to Elizabeth as, this is what I think we should be doing. We should be creating something together where we're doing cycle syncing around the programs that you do, which we're going to get into right now, and bringing in fitness as well, of like how we sync to our cycles. And I would love it if you would share more about that, because you have so much wisdom on this topic of our cycles and what they mean. And I love how you explain it as the seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really believe that the menstrual cycle is at the foundation of women's health. And yet it's something that is, still not commonly spoken about. I don't believe there's really a lot of solid education or support around. A lot of people hold, shame around it. It's thought of as gross or inconvenient or, just a pain to deal with. And this honestly breaks my heart, because the menstrual cycle is what directly connects us to nature. And it's a mirror for nature itself. And when we understand our menstrual cycle, we really start to see that we are quite literally mirroring nature. And there's layers that you can explore with the menstrual cycle. Like you can work on it in a very physical way, but it also holds a lot of what I would say like mystical wisdom as well, because it encompasses the feminine and this truth that the feminine is this ever changing. It's always changing, like the saying that the only constant is change, right? And we have lived in a world where we don't really value change, and we want things to be the same all the time and predictable, and wake up, do the same thing every single day, and be able to kind of predict what the outcome is going to be. And that's not the nature of the feminine. And so as we start to educate ourselves around the menstrual cycle, we realize like, oh, this is actually the way that the feminine operates innately. And so that's one of the reasons I love to, teach around this. And so the menstrual cycle has 4 phases. So in that, cycle, that spans across a 28 to 32 day period on average. Some people a little more, some people a little bit less, but just like, as probably a lot of you have heard, the moon phases, the moon cycle, it mirrors that. But I like to connect the 4 phases of the cycle to the 4 seasons. And this is just a really easy and accessible way to understand what we're moving through on a monthly basis. So menstruation, which is when you are bleeding, is like winter. And, where most of us are in the season of winter right now, right? And this is when, we're actually meant to rest. And it's a time of shedding and releasing, really. And so, the body really just wants to have the space to shed, to release, to clear. And with the blood is an opportunity to also release, well, literally toxins, but also stagnant energy, things that we've been holding on to. And, there's a reason that we're often a bit more emotional around that time too. That's also a part of the shedding. There's an opportunity really to clear and shed stuck emotions and emotions that we've been carrying. So that is menstruation. And so after we move through menstruation, which is 4 to 7 day period for most, we move into the follicular phase, which is spring. And so after that clearing, that shedding, that release, there is this opportunity to create new. So if you pay attention, you'll notice that this is a time when you're going to start to feel more creative. You're going to feel that spark, that just ready to, pursue whatever, intentions or creative ideas that you have. And if you're not doing this, if you start to pay attention, you'll find that it's much easier to put energy towards those things. And
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so this is when, if you look at the hormones, what's happening from follicular to ovulation is estrogen is building itself back up. And so with the estrogen building back up comes more energy, comes more, you're just feeling good. You're feeling like ready to really
vitality.
Yeah, exactly. So this starts to build back up in the follicular phase. And really you can think of it just like spring. Things are starting to bloom again. It's that gradual progression towards summer. So that's the follicular phase. And then ovulation is that peak. And so it's summer. It's when you are the most, I like to say magnetic. You're in your power. You have the capacity to take bold actions, maybe edgier actions that would typically be out of your comfort zone, or would, you're just feeling good. And you have the capacity to really channel that confidence that can, help you move forward and create in a really powerful and intentional way. And so again, this is when energy is peaking. Of course, this is also your fertile window. So, this is a whole other piece to the conversation, but a lot of women don't know that, they're not fertile every single day of the month. Really, there's a small window, and that is your ovulatory phase in which you are fertile. So this alone changes a lot of women's perspectives of their bodies and contributes to a whole unraveling of what they've been taught in society around their hormones and pregnancy and all of that. So that's your ovulatory phase. And your ovulatory phase, we say, is 3 to 4 days. Really, you're ovulating on in a really short period within those 3 to 4 days, but we give it that 3 to 4 day window is like when estrogen is peaking, and that's your ovulatory phase. So after your ovulatory phase, you move into the luteal phase, and that's fall. And so I mean, you can really look at it like the ovulation is like that peak, and then we're going to start to descend again. So during your luteal phase is when energy is going to gradually start to dwindle a bit. And you're going to, little by little, if you're living in tune with it, you're going to little by little want to slow down, to pull back your energy, retract a bit, leading up to menstruation. And so this is a time when it's a really good time to like ground. It's a really good time to, pay a little bit more attention to the details, get organized. It's a great time to like meal prep or, kind of tie up any loose ends and, start to prepare in a sense for this descent into menstruation. And, again, as we're nearing menstruation, this is when energy levels are really low. And that's when a lot of women will typically experience like PMS and things like that. But for the first week, because your luteal phase is around 2 weeks, for the first week, you still have a bit of energy to kind of, like I said, it's a great time to prepare. Think about like harvesting. I like to think of it as like you put out all of this energy during your follicular and ovulatory phase. You probably, those actions were backed with so much energy and power. And now it's a time to kind of give those things sustaining energy. So organization, tending to more of the back end or the details of things. And you can look at that with how you care for yourself too. And then we transition into menstruation, and then the cycle, starts all over. And so we're moving through that every 28 to 32 days.
I love what I love about this the most. I don't know. I feel like I might be coming into deeper appreciation of that winter cycle in just general life, because it's almost like if you really sink into that winter and soak it all up and do all the resting, and you're able to bring so much more into your summer, you're able to bring so much more energy. And it's also, I feel like in the wintertime, I've just been obsessed in the last few years with winter when, the snow really packs down all the leaves, and those leaves really turn into that mush, and then that mush is really what fertilizes the soil and helps to nourish the earth to be able to grow something new. So it's just so beautiful. That season is so much more beautiful than what we really recognize. And I personally am 100% at fault for just pushing through, and like, this again, cycle syncing, counting, knowing where your cycle is and what day you're on and that kind of stuff is something that I am not good at. I keep trying and I keep falling. I'm interested to know from the audience how many people are, tracking their cycle. Because it's so interesting to be able, like you said, to connect. We do so many things to connect. We do so many meditations, and we do spend time in nature and, know where the sun is and know where the moon is and all these things. And then the very most basic, and you could say prestigious opportunity for women to really have that connection is almost sort of turned away, because we are, and I love when you talk about this, Elizabeth, we are living in this sort of male dominated calendar. Like I love when you share about how, the way that men work. And I've tried to quote you before and I just can't. So I'm hoping you can share this.
Of course.
How we begin and end a day in a 24-hour cycle, or the work week. I can't remember which one it is, how that is so much more male oriented than female oriented.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I too have continued to grow to have a deeper appreciation for the winter phase as well. And I think that's something that comes with, there's a wisdom in that, but yeah. So, we live in a culture, like you're saying, that is really calibrated to the male hormonal cycle. So the male hormonal cycle is, a bit simpler and it's a 24-hour cycle. So essentially male hormones that, it's really about waking up, and there's a surge of testosterone, and throughout the day, throughout the workday, that testosterone begins to dwindle. And that really does create an ability to be really consistent, to be, quite predictable, really. There's less fluctuation. There's just more of a daily kind of trend that is, again, predictable, consistent. And so this is what we see in our world, where we're in these cycles where we're really, for the majority of people, wake up and do the same thing every single day and expect the same results and expect the same, output, and then, the rewards for that output and all of that. But when we start to understand the female hormonal clock, the female hormonal clock has a 24-hour clock, but it also has this 28-day clock. And that's really her female hormones that are moving throughout that 28-day cycle. And so this is where, when we're pushing into this 24-hour model, really the most common thing that we experience is burnout. Right. And then, burnout encompasses so much, and there's a lot of nuance within burnout. And, that's kind of the physical, maybe manifestation or symptom that we're experiencing, feeling burnt out. Right. But then there's so much more going on underneath that. So yeah, when we're, putting that expectation on ourselves, and then, there's a lot of, also just what I've seen is a lot of women feeling like, why am I not able to do this thing? Or, just beating themselves up, not having this understanding, not having less compassion because they don't understand this aspect of themselves. And really, women are, and the feminine is such a powerful creative force. We have actually quite a lot of energy to create. And so it's just looking at it, though, from a different perspective of how, again, how nature creates and births new life, and the beauty in that process. So
yeah, I love that. I feel like we could go in a whole rabbit hole about how society is not really wanting creators. They're wanting cogs in the wheel. You know what I mean? And so maybe that's a reason, subconscious or conscious, to kind of stagnate that whole concept. And we definitely could go down that. But what I want to intentionally stay focused and go into, there's so many pathways we could go into, but burnout and the adrenals and the thyroid are such a topic. Personally, I have experienced burnout a few times in my life, and I'm just now starting to really come into a deeper relationship and understanding of my adrenals and my thyroid and their relationship. This last burnout that I had, I literally could feel, I thought it was my kidneys, and I was realizing, I'm like, I can feel them. They're back there. What's going on? And your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys like little hats. And your thyroid, of course, is like a butterfly on either side of your throat, like left and right. So can you share more about that and the relationship with burnout, and why so many women are coming into issues with thyroid but feeling like it's burnout?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. This is such a big topic. And, I don't know if I've met, unless there's been a lot of intentional, work around that. I don't think I've met a woman that isn't, dealing with a compromised thyroid and some level of burnout and adrenal fatigue. And, again, like I said, there's a lot of different ways that can manifest and show up. So those are, especially adrenal fatigue, is kind of a more blanket statement. But yeah, so I find that, two of the most neglected maybe topics in women's, when we're talking about holistic health, especially for women, is the menstrual cycle and the thyroid. The thyroid is so important. It's like a governor for all of these different systems in the body, including digestion, absorption of nutrients, metabolism. And metabolism, is also something that's really misunderstood. So metabolism is not just about burning fat, speeding up the metabolism, right? But we want a fast metabolism, because that means that our thyroid ultimately is working optimally. So when we optimize the thyroid, we optimize the metabolism, and when the metabolism is optimized, we're optimizing the digestive system. And so when the digestive system is optimized, we're able to digest and absorb nutrients. A lot of people aren't absorbing nutrients, like a very simple. So that right there is a contributor to, things like adrenal fatigue. If you're not getting the proper nutrients, and especially minerals, which most people are deficient in, that's going to, that's going to be really taxing on the adrenals, and it's going to downregulate the thyroid and downregulate the metabolism. So if we optimize the thyroid, then again, we optimize metabolism, we optimize digestion, and then we're able to absorb nutrients and also properly eliminate toxins. And so again, another reason why one might be experiencing symptoms of burnout or adrenal issues is because of a lot of toxic buildup. And as we know, we live in a world where we are being exposed to a really high amount of toxins on a regular basis, right? It's in everything. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my work also is to help, women start to take inventory of that and eliminate what they can, and then optimize, these different systems so that the body can process that stuff. But a sluggish thyroid is really common. And, what we're seeing kind of circulating in mainstream, even holistic wellness, is a lot of, common trends and recommendations and things that we think are healthy and maybe in theory sound healthy. And it's not that they're not healthy, but they're not taking into account thyroid health. And so there's a lot of things that are being done, on a regular basis that are actually creating a lot of strain on the thyroid. And so this is, again, where, to me, the conversation is incomplete, and women's health is a lot more nuanced than, drinking green juice and working out. There's so much more to it. So, yeah.
So amazing. I mean, my own journey in this last year, I had no idea. Like I was mentioning, my adrenals, I started to feel them and I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And I was breaking out in chronic hives, and mainstream medicine was telling me, we don't know why it started. We don't know what will make it go away. You could have this for a year, or it could be longer. Like it could be for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And it was terrifying. You know what I mean? I literally could not live my life, without having this issue and just drinking Benadryl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was, I literally could feel my adrenals, because I feel like I am blessed with the fortune of being connected to my body in that way. Mm-hmm. Like I knew what it was. I meditated on it and I spoke with my adrenals, and, we had a little powwow about it, and, they were just exhausted. So I could feel it when I would get up in the morning to make the kids, breakfast and get ready for school and stuff. If we were a little bit behind, I would start to hive out. If I went for a hike and I hiked too hard, I would start to break out in hives. And it was just, I had to bring it back and do a lot of healing modalities to support my adrenals. I literally just had to shut down for 3 months and sit around and just I couldn't work out. I had to just turn it all off for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of, like you said, the absorption and the digestive track and that kind of thing. Like I did a lot of hydrocolonics and really supported myself with supplements and chilled and got myself at least back on the place where I could operate from. And now I'm just, enamored with the whole study. And so you're bringing this course called Nourished.
Yeah.
In a few weeks it kicks off. Well, wait, like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. On January 8th. Yeah.
So you'll share a lot. You mentioned it because I'm super excited to join you for this. And anyone in the audience that is interested in joining, I know there are some places left. Would be amazing to do it with you.
Yeah.
But this will focus on everything that you've just spoken about, right? So how we can eat to support our own cycle, how we can eat to support the thyroid, what's really going on. You've scheduled different calls that we will prep with and all that kind of stuff. Can you share more about how that will really impact people in this kind of specific arena?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Nourished is really my response to exactly what we're talking about, and it is kind of taking some of these ideas that we've all heard. There's so much circulating, and whether you feel like you're like someone who is prone to doing diets and things like that, it doesn't matter whether you are or not. We hold a lot of programs and ideas around what we think we should be doing, should be eating, should, right? And down to like, oh, I shouldn't eat an hour before bed, right? Like all sorts of things, right? I mean, we could probably sit here and list off hundreds of ideas. And I find that all of that is it just makes things more complicated. It's noise. And so what I'm really sharing through Nourished is, let's understand female physiology, what's actually happening on a biochemical level and with the hormonal system. And as we do that, we start to realize that it's not so complicated. Like there's not all of these rules or things we need to do, but rather there are systems, and here's how they like to be supported. And something that I say is, in the kind of the way that I work with nutrition and herbs and more of the physical healing, is female nutrition is the goal is to signal to the body that I am safe, I am nourished. And this creates an entirely different relationship with how we care for ourselves and how we eat and how we move, etc. And, for some people, they're probably like, what does that even mean? Maybe that makes sense to you, but really it's about signaling to the body and to the nervous system that I'm well fed, that I'm satiated, that I'm safe. Because as soon as we start to, if we're under eating, which most women are, if we're pushing too hard, whether that be through, our work or working out, or we're trying to do it all, be it all, this is sending the body into a stress state. And when we do that, we trigger these very survival like mechanisms in the body that put the body into a state of stress and fear. And this alone is probably the biggest thing that's compromising the thyroid. So if we can use nutrition and herbs, and then of course lifestyle, honestly, above everything really, but if we can use these different things to signal to the body like, oh no, actually I'm okay, I'm safe. Like when the body has adequate nutrients, that is a huge trigger to the body that it's safe, right? Because if we, go back in time, right? If there was a threat, like a famine or something like that, that would, of course, that's going to signal to our nervous systems that we're not safe and that we need to start holding on, storing, right? So storing calories, and with that storing, we also store emotions and energy too. Right. So it's like, that's the state that most people are in. And so if we can actually flood the body with nourishment, and to me, which is what we'll explore in Nourished, it of course it's nutritional, and it's nutritional, but there's a lot of other ways that we crave nourishment beyond nutrition as well. So we'll be focusing on female nutrition and female physiology and how we really use food and nutrients to create safety in the body. But we'll also be exploring and unpacking some of these other ways that we crave nourishment. And again, circling back to the thyroid, like the thyroid has to do with our voice, with our needs being met, with our ability to articulate our needs, with our ability to set boundaries, both with others and ourselves. So there we can see the connection to where I find, when I see so many women struggling with thyroid issues, and actually some of my first clients right after school were like insane hypothyroidism. And so I really got to see firsthand like how extreme it can get. I had a client who was literally crawling on the floor in the morning, crawling to the kitchen to, get like some tea and get moving.
Start the day.
Like just
Wow.
completely exhausted. And,
Yeah.
when I heard her story and how she grew up and the experiences she had, it made a lot of sense. Like she was never safe to articulate what she needed. And she lived in an environment where her needs were just completely insignificant, and it was never safe to speak up. And so, a lot of women are carrying that wound, whether they've, experienced it on that extreme of a level or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our lineages. Right. And so I find that to be very much connected to the thyroid. And so if we can really focus on the frequency of nourishment, I find that to be an antidote for that wound that a lot of us are carrying, right?
Yeah, the ability to speak our truth is not something that has been historically supported by society, right? And that is the center of the throat chakra, is speaking your authentic truth, being able to share your authenticity. And that's what we're doing here, is this On Purpose podcast, feeling nourished and having the elements that you need in your life to feel safe and secure. And on the opposing side of that, all of the disconnection that's caused from not being sure of what you should eat. This is the age of information. And so it's the age of all this information, which therefore also ends up being the age of disinformation too. Should you eat meat? Should you not eat meat? There's just so much information, and it's not, meat or non-meat is just the top of it, right? It's like you said, an hour before bed. Should you drink coffee? Should you not drink coffee? Should you drink coffee? Like, I know you do a really beautiful thing with coffee, all of these different things. And it's just so much information. You're literally paralyzed. I see this in my daughter right now. She is trying to eat healthy, but Frank eats completely different than I do. And so what does she do? She bounces between those two. And I'm like, we cannot cause this. We're giving her too much, and we're not even necessarily talking about it. She just picks it up.
Yeah.
So it's just such a big element of disconnection, whether it's intentional or not intentional from society. Again, it causes disconnection. And when we have disconnection to our truth, to, any truth, to what we should be eating and whatnot, it doesn't allow us to really, like you said, feel safe and connect into what we are here for. So that's a really big element too, that I feel like Nourished will, I think I just have this sense that everything that you're creating will just take us so much deeper in coming back into that really amazing, supportive connection and ability to open up in a larger way, open up our body, open up our emotions, and really just vibrate in a much bigger way and see our own truth and that kind of thing. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Remind me the dates again.
Yeah. So we start on January 8th, which is a Sunday, and we go for 5 weeks after that. And everything, of course, is, recorded and all of that good stuff. So you have access to it, even if you can't join live. So, yeah.
It's going to be so amazing. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us, we're going to begin closing, because I really am excited to hear this myself. Can you tell us, because this is the Living on Purpose podcast, and we are talking about our purpose and how we can connect deeper to that purpose. These opportunities that you have shared definitely bring us closer into that journey. But with your personal purpose, how did you come to this? Or are there any little stories about how you chased your purpose around, or it chased you around, or is there any?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think since I was really little, I was always wanting purpose. Like, I grew up in the Midwest and in Wisconsin, and I often felt like a black sheep. Like I did not resonate with the way that people were living. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't feel like I fit into that structure or those beliefs or whatnot. And so this showed up in a lot of different ways, but ultimately it pushed me to spend a lot of alone time. So it was, there's benefits to that. And there's also, healing around that to do as well. But ultimately, I feel like that alone time served me because I was constantly with myself, constantly looking at what I liked, what I didn't like. It was such a contrast in what I was experiencing that it just pushed me inward. It pushed me to be like, okay, well, then what do I like? What does feel good? And at the time, it was really, my entry level was, how can I eat better? How can I, so I was constantly reading books on plant-based living and holistic nutrition and, finding like free yoga classes and just like literally anything that I could find to feed those parts of myself that wanted, more vitality and wellness and connection with the earth and all of these things that were so, and to this day are not common to be experienced, at least where I grew up and with the people I grew up with. So, that was kind of the starting point. And and then in nutrition school, I moved to Boulder to study holistic nutrition, and Boulder really exposed me to everything that I wanted to be exposed to. There's some incredible healers there, and herbalists and functional medicine doctors and Ayurvedic doctors, and I really got to be around that and even intern with a lot of them, and so. Yeah, as I was finishing up one of my programs, I had my own kind of real health crisis, and a huge aspect of that was that I hadn't had my period in close to 5 years, and the reason for that was everything that we really just talked about was, in a lot of ways, I was doing things that were good for myself. And this is where, again, nutrition is really just the one really, it's one
Right.
sliver of the pie. It's not the whole thing, because I was, eating perfectly. Right. But I was also a perfectionist, and I was also really hard on myself. And I was also, really controlling. And I was also carrying a lot of emotional baggage, and my relationship with myself was.
Weren't you an athlete then too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a huge athlete growing up. So all of these things, contributed to being in this really stressed out state. So that ended up being my initiation into like women's health, and and I'm so grateful that all of that happened, because I that pushed me to seek out what I didn't previously have access to, and it pushed me to have to really heal myself. And I was able to use and draw on all of the tools that I learned and gained in school and whatnot, but there was additional digging that had to take place. And what I ultimately came to is that what was a physical healing journey ultimately was an emotional and spiritual healing journey, and we move through these different layers, and I've since explored all sorts of different things as it pertains to my purpose. And I don't think, at least for me, that purpose manifests in one particular way. Like my purpose is to have an herbal company. Like I think for me at least, I found that my purpose has taken on so many different iterations, but I kind of will go out and gain new things and, learn new things. And then I'll come back and I'll be brought back to like the simplicity or like the essence of it. And for me, that really, at least now, and who knows, maybe this will change, but what I continue to be brought back to is really wanting to be in service to women in whatever way, and really be able to reflect that we have the power to heal ourselves. And I'm a healer, but I'm not your healer. I'm my healer and you're your healer.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
all I'm here to do is, for those that feel called, is to guide that process. But I don't claim to know everything or have all the answers. And, the deepest healing that I've experienced has all been self-initiated. These other things help and they've unlocked certain things within me, of course, but I believe that we're the ones that hold the key to really, thriving and healing and all of that. So that has been, many things have brought me to that place. But
I love that you know that your purpose is to help women in connecting to their own healer. And it's interesting because sometimes I think that people pursuing a life of purpose, I spoke with this woman and she's like, I just did my NASM personal training. I'm super excited to start my purpose. And there's two things that I think happen. There's the life of purpose that you're living, and there's the way that you bring people to that purpose. So your purpose might be to help women, but the way that you bring that purpose about is through different things. And those are always changing because we're dynamic, right? So right now it's Nourished. Before that, it was Adeptist. You're working on another project, and those things always change because we change. Your purpose doesn't change. Your purpose is your purpose. The way that you come to that changes. So for me right now, it's bringing people into closer connection with their purpose. I feel like that's very much like what I'm meant to do. Right now, it's through personal training and connecting to the body as this high precision tool that we can find answers to. But that will change, and it already is changing. It's really it's interesting though, and I think it's a cool side note to just distinguish for people that are on that first few steps and like, okay, I think I've got it. Okay, how come this isn't fulfilling me? How come this doesn't make sense? How come all the answers are coming? I think that there's two tracks going on. So just to pepper that in on it. I love it though, because I think you're deep in your purpose, and seeing all these different offerings that you are making are a response to the feedback that you get. So Nourished, you might get this feedback, and that might tell you that a deeper way to connect with women will be to make this next thing that's maybe more emotionally based or something. So it's so cool. It's so fun watching your journey, and I really love it.
Thank you. Yeah. I love that. Exactly what you said. That was so beautifully put. I totally agree that there's different expressions of the purpose can be distilled down to like a very simple frequency or thing. So yeah.
All right. So Nourished is Elizabeth Rose's program. You can email her at thisiselizabethrose@gmail.com. She is Elizabeth Rose, the Adeptist. Her Instagram handle is at the Adeptist, TheAdeptist. And her website is www.theadeptist.com. She has a retreat coming up in Austin, right?
Yep. Just outside of Austin in Wimberley. Yeah.
So I'll share these links in the podcast notes. Additionally, I'm really excited for this too. Mystic Coven Retreats and Circles. This is something that isn't new, but it's taking an additional launch, right?
Yeah.
Mystic Coven is a worldwide community of women, which is gathering to remember. For thousands of years, women have been gathering to perform ritual, sit in ceremony, and reflect each other's magic. Mystic Coven was birthed out of a calling to restore these traditions, remember the ways of our ancestors, and create a space for women to come together in sacred ceremony, to heal, explore themselves, and expand in their power. What we didn't get a chance to talk about, because they're so good already, was Elizabeth's, her deep roots in learning sort of these ancestral lineages, and her time in Peru, and just all this beautiful learning that she's done, taking herself on this journey, but definitely picking up additional tools and opportunities to support others in their journey. So she is so something, and I'm really excited to have you here with us today. So thank you so much for being here. It was so lovely talking with you, and I can't wait to join you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for connecting with us today through episode 3 with Elizabeth Rose. I'm really excited about this episode, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it. Shout out your favorite part of the podcast on Instagram and tag me at klz.method. I would love to hear, and it's always just so interesting to connect with what you really pulled from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, turn on notifications for this podcast so that you'll be in the know of future episodes. And if you're interested in joining Nourished, don't forget that promo code KLZ for $100 off. The first session begins January 8th, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you there. Until next time, thanks for being with us.